Hello, so creative, is Faustina here. Welcome to another interesting tutorial. On today's tutorial we are going to learn how to sew this beautiful corset blouse that you are seeing on the screen. So the style we replicated was a gown, but my client wanted hers to be in form of a blouse. She wants to use it and tie wrapper. So if it's something that you would like to learn how I put all the cutout pattern together, grab your popcorn and sit and keep watching. You can see that I have gone halfway on the beading of the blouse, and you see how beautiful the beading is coming out. So I'm going to learn both the beading and everything. This particular video is for the sewing pattern. We have already uploaded the drafting pattern, so if you have not watched the drafting pattern, you can go over and watch it. It's done on our channel already, and you are going to understand it very well when you watch the drafting video before you move over to watch the sewing pattern. This is the front pattern, so I'm trying to trim out the middle illusion net, which is the combination of two nets and skin color crepe. I joined them together to get that middle illusion net. I'm trying to join the corset lines together with my office pin. You can see the notches I had on our cutout pattern, so I'm making sure that the two notches are matching each other. So this is how you get your sewing very accurate. And if you also want to work very accurate, you should normalize working with your pin. Working with your pin is going to help you get all your sewing pattern accurate. So after pinning it down, you can go ahead and use your tailor's chalk or pencil to mark out your sewing allowance in order to get a very straight line, so that when you are sewing, you know that you are sewing on half an inch. You are not going to sew ragged, like your lines will be very straight and accurate. After pinning it down, I'm going to move over to my sewing machine and go and run a stitch on them. I've gone ahead to stitch all the corset line. You can see how beautiful it's looking. I'm heading over to my ironing table to go and iron press all the seams, and we are going to do the same thing to the back also. Join the two cutout back and pin it as well. After joining it, I'm heading over to my sewing machine to go and run a stitch on each, which is half an inch, to join the two cutout pattern together. If you watch closely, you can see that I notch places that are so important, which is the waist and the chest line, so that when I'm joining it, I will join using that notch as a guide in order to get an accurate joining. After pinning it now, I'm going to head over to my sewing machine and go and sew it together. I've gone ahead to join the back. You can see how pretty it's looking, and also iron press the seam, and you can see that the two notches are matching each other, and that is it. We are going to move over to the cup area. These are our corset cup. You can see I also went ahead to notch the very important places that needed to be notched, and I'm heading over to pin it down so that I can move over to my sewing machine and go and sew half an inch on the parts that I'm pinning down. So I'm basically moving over to my sewing machine to go and sew it and come and show you. So I've gone ahead to sew it, and we are going to iron open the seams using our tailor's ham, which is in a ball form. You can see it, and there is no light. I'm using artificial iron, which is a spoilt iron I place on top of gas cylinder. When it's hot, I will use it and come and iron open all the seams of the corset cup. Once you do this thing, you will see that your corset cup will be cupping. It will come out so nice. You don't need to stress yourself when you want to put the cup. When you do this ironing process, when you want to put the cup, which is already made bra cup, it will just go in deeply without stress. The first thing I do on the already made bra cup is to notch the middle part. When I indicate the middle part, I'm going to trim out the sewing allowance we had on the corset cup. I'm going to trim it out a little so that it will remain just small. After trimming it out, I'm going to place the part that I notched to meet the middle part of the corset cup that we just sewn, and I'm first going to use my office pin to pin it down like so. Once you pin down the notch middle, you will see that you have leverage to drag the other part. So when you are dragging the other part, make sure that you are dragging it in such a way that you are keeping half-inch sewing allowance around the cup area. You can see how I'm trying to arrange the cup inside the corset cup, and it's looking so pretty. That is the essence of iron pressing or your seam. Once you start dragging, you see that everything will start relaxing, very fine and normal. So I'm using this same method to also put in our bra cup inside our corset cup of the left breast. And after you must have dragged everything, you see that you have excess at the upper part. So this excess is the place we are going to use to sew in our yoke, and on the cup we are going to go over to our sewing machine and run a stitch at that cup area. And after sewing the stitches, we are going to introduce our corset, and we are going to start pinning down our cup on our corset. So I'm starting from the middle. I align the middle line to meet the middle line of our corset blouse, and I start pinning from the middle to meet the upper part of the center front of the breast side, after which I'm also going to pin down the armhole area, and I'm also going to repeat the same thing to the other side of the cup. The reason why I'm pinning it down before I'm heading over to my sewing machine, so that it will be so easy for me to sew. So if you're a beginner and you don't know how to sew corset cup very well, I will advise you pin down your cup before you move over to your sewing machine to go and run a stitch on it. You will see that it's going to come out so nice. After pinning it down, I'm going to head over to my sewing machine and go and run a stitch on it and come back and show you the outcome. So I've gone ahead to sew it, and this is the outcome. You can see how pretty it's looking. After sewing it, you can go ahead and remove all the pins, and we are going to keep it aside and start working on the line. On the line, we are going to also arrange it the same way we arrange our reworking fabric and also sewn on there. So this is our beautiful line. I've sewn it and also iron press it like we did to the men working fabric. Is on this lining that we are going to be adding all our boning channel, and our boning channel we are going to be using invisible boning method. This invisible sewing of boning means that we are going to sew this boning on this sewing allowance that we use to join all these pieces together. Like this our seam that we iron press, we are going to sew the bone on the seam we iron press. Like we are going to raise the seams that we iron press, we are going to raise one side and sew one side of the bone, and we raise the other side and sew one side of the bone, so that when you turn it to the right side, you will not see any sewn line to the right side, and even in the inside everything will be looking so neat and fine. So this is how I do it. I measure out my boning and I tape the mat with my masking tape so that it will not be pinching my client. And I'm also going to repeat the same thing to this front, measure my sewing lines and mask it with my masking tape so that it will not pinch my client. But before I measure out my boning lines, I've already iron pressed it. You can see that it's looking so flat. I've also gone ahead to sew the boning. Like I said, I sewn on the same line with iron press, and you can see very closely that I sewed on all the same line, and this is the right side. The right side is also looking so pretty and neat, and I did the same thing on the front part as well. I sewed on the same lines, and every part of the corset I sew on the same line. We are going to keep the lining by the side and start working on the yoke. This is our yoke. I'm going to unpin the patterns we used to cut out our yoke, and I'm going to arrange our yoke. So you open your yoke, you arrange it. After you must have arranged it, you use your pin to pin it down so that we can move over to our sewing machine to go and sew round the neck of our yoke pattern. We are also going to do the same thing to the back, arrange the back and also sew the neck and also that curvy area. So I've gone ahead to sew the neck, and this is the outcome. What I'm going to do now is to trim out the excesses that we have on the neck, so that when you turn it to the right side, it will look so perfect and neat and seamless. So after trimming out the excesses, I'm going to raise one of the yoke like so and turn it to the right side in order to use it to cover the rough edges, and it's going to look like so. And that is it for the yoke. I'm going to introduce it to the main fabric. I'm going to go ahead and pin it down from the middle. I will pin from the middle. Starting from the middle, I pin it down, and I'm going to arrange other parts all the way to the armpit area, and I keep pinning it down until I reach to the last part that needed to be pinned. And I'm pinning on the half inches that we have after putting our cup. Don't sew on your cup, sew on that half inches that you have after we must have inserted our cup. You see that there was a leftover of half inches. So after pinning it down, moving over to my sewing machine to go and sew it, and also doing the same thing to the back. I went ahead to pin down the yoke, starting from the dart we had on our back pattern. I pinned down the yoke after I must have sewn and also trim out the excesses that we don't need, and turn it to the right side. Watch closely and see how I pin down the yoke. You can see that the yoke is lying inside our main fabric. So after which I'm going to use this lining and place it on top like so, and sew on that yoke area, the zipper area, the side, and also the hem part. Like I said, the lining is ½ inch shorter than our working fabric. The lining is going to tuck in the hem part of our working fabric. So I'm heading over to my sewing machine to go and run a stitch on that yoke side, armpit area, zipper area by the side. So I've gone ahead to sew it, and I left like 1 inch by the side. This 1 inch is what I'm going to use to turn everything to the right side. But before I turn it to the right side, I'm going to notch the armpit area. After notching it, I'm also going to notch the upper part, and I'm also going to go ahead and trim out the excesses. We don't need it. I'm going to trim it so that it will remain just a little. So after trimming it, I'm going to now use that opening that we left by the side to turn it to the right side. I'm also going to repeat the same thing to the other side of the back. So when you turn it to the right side, you go over to your ironing table and go and iron press everything so that everything will be looking so you flat. Can see that our yoke is neatly sewn and also sewn to the main fabric. If I turn to the wrong side, you will not even identify or differentiate between the front or the back. You can see that the hem is relaxing. We are going to move over to our sewing machine to go and fuse our zip at the back, and I've gone ahead to sew the zip. This is the outcome. You see that our corset blouse is coming out very fine, and we are going to start working on the front part. So after sewing the yoke, I'm going to also use this lining to turn the yoke area. You can see also that the yoke is falling inside, like in between the lining and our main working fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and pin around the part that we sewn our yoke already. So after pinning it down, I'm heading over to my sewing machine to also go and sew around the part that we sewn our yoke. So I'm going to sew from the inside, like I'm going to pin down my yoke very properly so that it will not interfere between my sewing. You know that this sewing, we are not going to be seeing it because our yoke is in between. So you must be very careful when you are sewing this part so that you don't sew on your yoke. That is the reason why I'm patiently arranging my lining with my main fabric and also pinning it down, so that whenever I move over to my sewing machine, it will be so easy for me to sew. So after pinning it down, I'm heading over to my sewing machine to go and sew. I'm going to sew from the part that I will see the first line that I have already sewn when I was attaching the yoke to our corset cup. I'm going to sew from this inside and sew directly on the first line we had. And after which I'm going to sew the hem part, the side, and the armpit area. And I'm also going to leave like 1 inch, which I'm going to use to turn everything to the right side. Before I turn it to the right side, what I'm going to do first is to go and notch the upper part like we did to the back. I'm going to go ahead and notch this part in order to release or ease the stitches we had on that yoke and also on our main fabric. After notching it, I'm going to also go ahead and trim it to the nearest minimum, and after 3 minutes I'm going to over to start turning it to the right side. From the hole we left, which is the 1-inch hole, we are going to start turning it to the right side. While turn it gently, don't do it by force. Be patient while doing it so that you don't tear your yoke or harm your beautiful corset blouse. So after turning it, I'm heading over to my ironing table to go and iron press everything so that it will look so flat and neat. Even with that ironing it, you can see how neat our beautiful corset blouse is looking. So this is how you go about it. I'm going to go and iron and press it now. The next thing we are going to do is to join both the front and the back yoke together from the shoulder. So I'm going to place the back yoke to meet the front yoke like so, and I'm going to raise one of the back yoke and turn it, move it to meet the other side of the front yoke, and I'm going to pin it down. I want to sew inseam finishing so that after sewing the yoke, I'm going to turn it to the right side, and all our seam will be in between the shoulder, not our seam touching our client's body. And after pinning it, I'm going to move over to my sewing machine and go and run a stitch there. I'm going to repeat the same thing to this other yoke. If you don't understand what I did, just watch closely and see what I did there. Let me show you. I raise it up, I flip one to the other side, I pin it down, and I keep pinning until it gets to the end part. And after pinning, I'm going to head over to my sewing machine and go and run 1/2 inch on that yoke and come back and show you what to do next. So I've gone ahead to sew it, and what to do next is to trim out what we just sewn to the nearest minimum. And once you trim it out to the nearest minimum, we are going to now flip it to the right side. You can see how it's looking. So this is what I mean by inseam finish. You can see what we sew is in between. Both the front and the back is looking so neat, and we are going to now proceed in closing the side. So this is how you close the side. You join the two sides together, you pin both the bust, waist and the hem side, and start marking your client's body or your body if you are sewing it for yourself. So when you measure and you mark out what you have, you divide the remaining allowance into 2 and share it into 2 equal halves and place it on the both sides. You mark both the bust, the waist and the upper hip circumference, and after marking it, I will go and sew it. So I'm going ahead to close our corset blouse, and it's looking pretty even without doing anything. So the remaining 2 nets is what I'm going to use to cut out the long sleeve. I have a well detailed tutorial on how to cut your long sleeve, so in case you don't know how to cut your long sleeve, you can move over to my channel and you see a well detailed tutorial on how to cut your long sleeve, and you cut and sew it on your blouse. And these are the bead that we are going to use to start beading it. It's called sand bead. We have green sand bead and gold sand bead, and we are going to start beading it. And I've gone ahead to bead to some extent. This beading is not for the faint-hearted, so you must have bag load of patience in order to bead this thing. So I'm going to show you how I've been beading it lately. So the beading process, you just fix your, I'm using polyester thread to bead. Fix your polyester thread, fix it to a point that you start beading it. So when you fix it, you collect your bead. Don't collect too much. So instead of you to do running stitches, you are doing backward stitches. Instead of you, after putting all your sand bead, instead of you to do running stitches, you rather take it backward. So once you take it backward, you will see the place that you take it backward. From that place you will see sand bead. From that place you fix back your thread inward. I don't know if you are understanding what I'm trying to explain. I pick my sand bead like so, and after picking my sand bead, instead of me to take it in the front and do running stitches, I rather took it backward. And once I took it backward, I will from my sand bead bring out my thread to the right side, like bring back my thread forward again, and I will repeat the same method until I finish all the beadings. I will keep doing it so that you understand what I'm doing. After picking your bead, you take your needle backward instead of the right side. Take it backward, and after taking it backward from your bead, you bring back your thread to the front, and that is how I've been beading it. And if you have watched to this point, thanks for watching. See you in my next one. Bye bye, my lovers. Mwah.